Welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast, where you get to choose, change and take action to create a different today and a different future. These are my stories of choice, change and action, along with the phenomenal guests I have on here. From a really young age, I've always desired to create a change in the world. The planet has been a constant inspiration to me, and Access Consciousness has shown me the tools to know that anything is possible. And I keep choosing. What are you going to choose? Hey everyone, so welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast. Wow, I'd like to say I'm Simone Milasas and I have no idea who the fuck I am. So I am recording this on video. I have no idea if we'll put this up onto YouTube or not. I'm in my room at the Parco di Principe in Rome. I'm actually leaving in about 40 minutes to go get on my plane to go home. So this might be short and sweet, this podcast, if I actually end up launching it. I'm supposed to have done one by today. You know what's supposed to? It's like I'm so incredibly grateful for everyone that I work with. We don't call ourselves a team. We call ourselves a COI, C-O-I, which is a conglomeration of idiots, and a conglomeration of idiots heading in the same direction. And I've just been getting ready and packing. And I was going to say, hey, look, let's just skip this week's podcast and let's do something different. And then I thought, well, what if I actually try and talk to what has been showing up for me and what has been changing for me? I left Australia 9 weeks ago now. So big 9-week tour after, being at home for so long. And I've got to say, which if you've been listening to my podcast, you would already have knowing this, that I have been incredibly grateful for the past couple of years and actually being at home. I've chosen things that I would not have chosen before. There was possibilities that showed up that may not have showed up if we weren't stuck in Australia, as they say. And interesting enough, I was talking to a friend of mine in Russia the other day, and how everyone says to him, oh, you should get out of Russia, you should, escape, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, why? He goes, I'm actually creating beyond all of this, and there's a level of joy in my world that I'm, creating from. And I said, it's really similar. When I was in Australia, everyone kept saying, you should get out, you should get out. And I was like, why? And I was like, I'm like locked in paradise. I mean, the state I was in Queensland, no one was allowed to come in, you weren't allowed to leave, but it's pretty freaking beautiful. And I got to discover my state, And then now it's like, so here's what I would like you to invite you to is, what if you started looking at a different perspective of your life and of your business, of whatever you've decided that you think you have a problem with, And I had a really good conversation with Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, this morning, as a billion good conversations with him over the last 9 weeks. And I'm so grateful for him and Dane and everyone that I work with. And one of the things, I had this something show up in my world that I was like a little clunky with, and I pinged him last night and said, hey, can we chat tomorrow? So, him being the most amazing, generous man I know, so freaking tired, and at 7 o'clock this morning, he walks over and we have tea and coffee and have this chat. And he was asking me these questions, really directly of what is it that you would like? And I was like, I want to walk around this. I want to look at this in a different way. And what we ended up getting to was, it's sort of what perspective do you have in place that if you didn't have that perspective in place and actually allowed yourself to change it, then what else could show up? Okay. So now what you have to actually step into with this is your willingness and desire to not be right. To not be right and actually perceive something beyond where you're functioning from right now. Now, Gary has said forever and a day, most people would rather be right than be free. And I have seen that time and time again, conversation after conversation, that most people would rather be right than be free. And most people will deny it, but all you're trying to do is have the rightness of your point of view. It's that's the way it works. So what even if you started looking at, well, where in my life am I trying to get it right and trying to be right rather than actually be free? And in the last 9 weeks, oh my God, so much has changed. I started off in the US And then I went to Mexico, which was amazing. And then went to El Lugar, Costa Rica. And then New York and Italy and London. And then back to Italy. I spent most of my time in Italy. Mi piace Italy. I love Italy. I like it. It pleases me. It's been so amazing being here, and all the different classes that I facilitated and also attended. And there's also, when I left Australia, Access Consciousness, the company, looked one way, and now it is completely different. It's like the face of Access. A lot of the systems in it we have changed dramatically. Well, not dramatically. That's been dramatic, isn't it? Dynamically, I should say. We've changed it dynamically, of how it's showing up now. And I just facilitated a class, facilitating facilitators here in Rome with Gary and Dane and the three of us on stage. And oh my goodness, it was amazing. It was such a cool class. And one of the things I said to Gary was, like, the energy between the three of us is just palpable. Like, the three of us are so excited and just like, wow. And what we can choose and create and actualize and generate, with Access Consciousness on the planet, is not definable, not trying to conclude it. It was just like, wow, wow, wow. Okay. So this morning too, I was like, okay, what was going on for me was sort of, I was so aware of this energy, but I was sort of stepping away and pulling away from this based on a point of view that I had. And one of the things that I said to him was, I didn't realize that energy or that communion was available, like that it didn't exist with Gary, myself, and Dane until it showed up. And I was like, wow, now this also has this energy of, like, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Like, what else is possible? So, I mean, how many people do you create your relationship with based on judgment rather than based on communion and what is truly possible? And for me, I know Gary and Dane also, it's like, I'd like to create more consciousness on the planet. Like, I'd like to invite people to be more conscious and more aware of everything that they choose. Now, this is, if you haven't done any access and you're watching this or listening to this and you're like, you go into that spiritual world, look, to me, spirit, a lot of the places that I played in the spiritual, spirituality, there was always a rightness of the point of view. Like, if you don't choose this, then you're right. Or, I mean, you're wrong. If you don't choose this, then you're going down the wrong pathway, or blah, 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 all this sort of stuff. To me, Access Consciousness, yes, it's a modality that has classes and tools and processes and everything like that, and can contribute to any area of your life. And yet, the most simple way of this is more about not being in judgment. Like, if you had no more judgment of you and you knew that there was always another possibility, what would you choose? So one of the things that showed up for me this morning, which is funny, I wrote a book called Joy of Business. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend reading it. Joy of Business, years and years ago, like, I don't know, 16 years ago or something, I started doing classes and put this book together. And it's now translated into 15, 16 languages. It's on Audible. It's actually, we're releasing it in audio in a lot of different languages as well. And that was the first book I wrote. And I have been doing business done different classes and, Joy Business classes. And now we have JCFs, what we call them, Joy Business Facilitators all around the world. I just did a training at the Castle in Italy, which was amazing again, like, just so phenomenal. So much fun, and where people can get to and what they can choose, changing your perspective, has been truly such a gift. And this morning with this conversation, Gary was talking to me about it and about the gift that it is. And I realized I'd been making Joy Business this, like, redheaded stepchild. Nothing against redheads, nothing against stepchilds, okay? But you know the saying, redheaded stepchild. And I'd been making Joy Business like this redheaded stepchild. And he said, you need to stop controlling it. And I was like, how am I controlling it? Like, and I couldn't see this. And he kept saying a few different things. And he said, let the demand be there. And I was like, what, wait until I schedule a class? And he was like, did I say wait? And I was like, no. And he said, let the demand be there. And at the moment, there's a lot of people demanding Joy Business and business done different. And he was like, what if you did 12 classes a year? I was like, Oh, I've been looking at I should only do 2 classes a year based on, you know, it's using access consciousness tools, which is the main business, the main company, and yet it wasn't under access consciousness, if that makes any sense. So there's other classes that I do, like relationship done different, choice of possibilities, facilitators, etc., which is under access consciousness. And I've been making those classes and that part of the business mean more, like more meaningful than the other stuff. Which the other stuff, he said, do you realize if you actually allow the demand to be there with business done different, how much all of the facilitators in access consciousness will increase their business? And I was like, holy shit. And it's like, I've been stopping what can show up for other people's business and stopping what can show up for access consciousness based on trying to control my redheaded stepchild rather than allowing it to be everything it can be and follow the demand. Like, follow the demand. The demand is there. Now, let me give you another example of that. When we first started out with access consciousness, we were in when I came along, we were in 4 countries. When Gary, obviously when he came along, he started it. But when I came along, we were in America, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. And, now we're in I don't know, it's about 187 countries or something like that. It's a lot, okay? There's very few countries that access consciousness is not in. And, we just got a facilitator for Iraq last week. And I'm like, that's so friggin' cool. Like, how does it get any better than that? So anyway, we're in 4 countries and it's expanded, right, over the past 21 years. Now, did we sit down and say, okay, we should only do this amount of classes or we should have it look like this or blah, blah, blah? No, we followed the demand. We followed the demand. So if you're actually willing to change your perspective and follow the demand, what would you choose? So I just pinged my conglomeration of idiots today, and I went, hey, I'd like to do a hell of a lot more business done different classes, all around the world, wherever I go. Personally, I love talking about business and I love talking about money, and I love also empowering people to know that they know a hell of a lot more than they think they know, can I say? And to, jump over all those hurdles that only you have put in place with business and with money and with your choices. If you are willing to change your perspective on what you have decided cannot work, like anytime you go to, I can't, I doubt, there's only this, and this is the way it can show up, boom, you are incorrect. There are so many different possibilities. Question, are you willing to change your perspective in regards to this? So if you look at it with business, are you willing to change your perspective in regards to business? Are you willing to change your perspective in regards to money? It's like, what else could truly, truly show up for you? So look out for my Business Done Different classes and also all the other Joy Business Facilitators. There's so many of them around the world, and they're different and they're brilliant, and it's like I absolutely adore them. And now that Joy Business is not going to be the redheaded stepchild, I'm wondering what else is possible for everyone and what else is possible for all of the businesses around the world, not just access consciousness facilitators. I'm talking any business. Because if you truly desire to increase your business and increase the revenue streams, increase the possibilities, using access consciousness tools, I just know is a way to actually choose that. There are so many different tools and different processes and different ways at looking at different scenarios that can create change. Whatever business you're in, I'm telling you it can. Okay, so I know this is really short and sweet, but this is the podcast for this week. So hopefully you get something out of it, and please look out for the Joy Business classes anywhere in the world. Join me in anything and everything coming up. And excuse me, choking. I'd also like to thank everyone who is, has been sending me emails or notifications on Instagram or wherever it is, or in person when you've seen me, and thanking me for the podcast. I'm truly grateful for the feedback, because sometimes when you're just sitting here, talking like this, you're like, is it creating a change anywhere? And every choice I make, I would like to create a change in the world. So with your choices and every choice you make, what is it that you would like to choose, and what is it that you would like to create? The second book that I wrote, Getting Out of Debt Joyfully, I actually do have a Getting Out of Debt Joyfully class coming up soon, and it's in July, and it starts on July 15th in Australia. It's from Australia, my time, 4 till 7. It's just a few hours a day, and it goes for 4 days. So it's a really good time for Europe. Actually, it's a good time for you wherever you are in the world, because why would you not stay up for it? So if you want to check that out, Getting Out of Debt Joyfully. If you don't have it, you don't have to be in debt to come to the class. You don't have to be in debt to actually read the book. You can create more wealth, basically. That's what I've done. And you know what? This is just the beginning. After the conversation I had with Gary this morning, I was like, fuck yeah, this is just the beginning. It's like, how much more revenue can I ask for to show up? How many more revenue streams? What else can I choose? What else can I create? And what else can I actualize that includes everything? And here's to more consciousness on the planet, and here's to way too much fun. All right, thank you so much, guys. If you haven't checked it out, it's on YouTube as well, this podcast. Please share this with everyone. And I'm heading home to Australia, so I'll be home for 2.5 weeks. So the next podcast you hear, I'll be home in Australia. So big hugs, big love to you all around the world. Mwah, 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 mwah. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to hit the follow or subscribe button on your favorite listening platform to get notified of new episodes. We read all the reviews, so if there's any topic you would like to hear about, let us know. If you'd like to know more about the tools, information, and classes mentioned in the podcast, head on over to SimoneMilasas.com and follow me on Instagram at Simone Milasas, or the podcast has its very own link on Instagram at Choice, Change, and Action. Don't forget, you can download the show notes. And lastly, have way too much fun today.